In every corner of Canada is Ukraine, in steadfast and unwavering support of your leadership, of the people of Ukraine.
They're back at it. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today we've got Stephen Guilbeault in the news as he's the new Heritage and Culture Minister. We got an article talking about how he's going to be cracking down with the Online Streaming Act, forcing in an online narrative of what streaming services have to show to Canadians. We also got results from the Nunavut by-election. We got an absolute truth bomb being dropped on the CBC, a bunch of other stuff. Let's jump into this. First up, let's start with the NDP Nunavut by-election results. They've been validated, and the NDP winner here, Laurie Guilbeault, beat the Liberal challenger, Cpac, Kabalula, whatever, with 41 votes. So she was up by 71. There's an entire box of ballots, and then the Liberal made up quite a few votes, but didn't make it 41 votes, which means about 75% of the votes in that box were for the Liberal. Either way, they don't get that seat, so that's good news for the Conservatives and the NDP. It says the 41 vote difference is not enough to automatically trigger a judicial recount, which requires a 0.1%. So as of right now, it doesn't seem to be going to that. We are still waiting for a Terra Nova in the Peninsulas, where the Liberals winning by 12 votes over the Conservatives. And there's also the one in Windsor here, where the Conservative is beating the Liberal here by 77 votes. Also, Terrebonne, which needs a full by-election because clearly that one's messed up because Elections Canada screwed up badly. Next up on the CBC, listen to this. Rosemary Barton getting an earful of Mark Carney not acting like a prime minister.
It's about you ran on being like the economic stewards and having more economic cred than Pierre Poilievre. And the first action is telling Canadians, no, you're not going to take Parliament seriously enough to introduce a budget and give people a snapshot of where you're going and how much it's going to cost and what you think the challenges are in the future. Like, no, it's completely inappropriate. And the Conservatives are right. And the other opposition parties should probably gang on and complain that the government is railroading and acting in completely unacceptable ways. And this is not a standard that you want to set, because the next government will do exactly the same thing this week.
Look how uncomfortable Rosemary Barton is here. This is bad when you have Liberals saying this stuff on CBC. It really is. She got her payday. That's all she cares about. Simple solution, non-confidence vote. Yeah, well, I mean, once that throne speech comes, maybe vote it down. Wouldn't that be something? If they voted that down, we went to another election. That would be quite something. So we got this one coming from the National Post. It says ex-environment minister will now be supervising the implementation of the Online Streaming Act. This was a 2023 law that enables the feds to impose content controls over much of the Canadian internet. Says Guilbeault here is the Minister of Canadian Identity and Culture now. He actually used to be this minister back in 2019 to 2021. This position gives him the oversight of the CBC, Parks Canada, Department of Canadian Heritage, and Canadian Radio, Television, Telecommunications Commission, among others. So it goes on to say here, the Online Streaming Act effectively requires internet companies to follow the same rules on Canadian content as traditional TV and radio broadcasters. Just after Stephen Guilbeault got named this minister, it says just this week the CRTC began hearings to determine how Canadian content would be defined under the terms of the Online Streaming Act. It says in 2022, the CTRC chairman Ian Scott told the Senate committee that the Online Streaming Act could empower him to tell the likes of Netflix, I want you to manipulate the algorithm to produce particular outcomes. It goes on to say the Online Streaming Act also goes beyond Canadian content by hinting that streamers may also be subject to inclusive mandates on their content. The Online Streaming Act specifically requires broadcasters to produce content that reflects Black or racialized communities, as well as Canadians of diverse gender orientations, gender identities, and expressions. And it says it empowers them to ensure online streaming services support Canadian and Indigenous content. They want to control everything we see. They want all this power, all this control, and basically take away democracy, free speech, just the free right to be able to watch what we want to watch. It's a slippery slope. This can't go through. Next up, we got Mark Carney in Rome. He brought that entourage of 19 liberals, Catholic liberals, to go see the Pope on our dime. Well, he was able to meet with a couple of leaders.
The Prime Minister sat down with Ursula von der Leyen, the President of the European Commission.
I want to thank you for your leadership, the European Union's leadership, the close partnership we have between Canada and the European Union. And if I may, at a time when the world is more dangerous and divided, a partnership that is ever more important, and I hope that can continue to grow.
Ottawa has been working on strengthening its relationship with European allies in light of Donald Trump's tariff and annexation threats. Ukraine has also been a hot topic. Earlier this week, leaders of the European Union expressed full support for Ukraine, confirming new packages of sanctions against Russia. The Prime Minister also sat down with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky.
Mark Carney's going around fear-mongering in other countries now.
Many important issues to discuss, very fluid situation. And one last point, I very much look forward to welcoming the President to Canada in less than a month for the G7 summit.
This is the first time the two leaders are meeting face-to-face since Carney became Prime Minister. Although Ukraine is not a G7 member, Carney has invited Zelensky to next month's G7 summit being hosted in Alberta.
We take a look at the longer meeting here. Mark Carney giving his unwavering support to Zelensky in Ukraine.
Mr. President, welcome. Welcome to this corner of Canada. And may I say, in every corner of Canada is Ukraine. The Canadian people stand in steadfast and unwavering support of your leadership, of the people of Ukraine. We admire what you're doing. We admire your commitment to peace, as you've demonstrated again this week. And we understand.
Oh, please, there's 5,000 young men who get wiped out every week due to this conflict. This guy isn't even trying to make a deal. There's Donald Trump is trying to make a deal with these guys this week, have them come together and actually make a deal. Ukraine needs an election, but he just keeps dodging it because of this whole conflict, and yet he doesn't want to make a deal with Putin. The second that happens, there's going to be an election. He's going to be kicked out.
Underscore that there can be no peace without the full support and participation of Ukraine, and that you have our absolute support.
Thank you so much, Mr. Prime Minister. I'm happy to see you personally, and I wanted very much to, from the very beginning, to invite you, of course, to visit Ukraine. Happy to see you.
Very good.
The first meeting.
Yes. Thank you. Very good. So we have, as you heard from the President, many important issues to discuss, very fluid situation.
There goes Canada's budget, you bet. Billions of dollars waiting to flood over there. How much did this meeting cost taxpayers? I wonder how many Canadian taxpayer dollars he just promised them. So Mark Carney did meet with Giorgia Meloni, PM of Italy.
Dunque, sono molto contenta di dare il benvenuto a Roma, nuovo primo.
It's all in Italian here, but she basically just gives him a warm welcome, all these kind of generic kind of talk. His body language is very bizarre here, as you can see. It's not quite as bizarre as Justin Trudeau, but it's getting there. He's like sunk down to his chair like a little kid.
In fact, all the issues that you tabled last year have proven to be the central issues that the world faces.
Oh, please. More fear-mongering on the world stage. And he met with the Italian president of the Republic, Sergio Mattarella. This one's really interesting. It says the people of Poland started chanting Donald Trump as they spoke about illegal aliens. Absolute mic drop.
Oppose illegal migration. We will stop the anti-American change in Europe.
Będziemy opierać się nielegalnej imigracji i będziemy opierać się antyamerykańskiej polityce w Europie.
Donald Trump! 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 Donald Trump is not just a person, he's a symbol of freedom that will cover all the free world.
To nie jest tylko osoba, to nie jest tylko człowiek, to jest także symbol walki o wolność.
Wow, that's quite something. Trump's message is resonating around the globe. Leadership is everything. Trump isn't just a man, he's a movement. Unfortunately, he meddled in our election. Now we're stuck with liberals again. I thought this chart was interesting here. It shows Tesla versus other electric car companies. This is very interesting because they're all crashing here. So you can see at the bottom, years 1 to 5, 6 to 10, 11 to 15, 16 to 20. So Tesla here is in like year about 15. And all of them are crashing and burning except Tesla is just skyrocketed. And what we're looking at here is free cash flow history of pure EV makers, cumulative since inception in billions. So Tesla's at $16.1 billion, but all the rest here in the brackets here are minus. So Rivian minus $22 billion, minus $6 billion, minus $4 billion, minus $2 billion, $2 billion, 1.4. They're all losing money except Tesla. In other news, uranium is being added to Nova Scotia's critical minerals list as province seeks exploration. Yeah, that's not going to happen. Do we really think this is going to happen under Mark Carney? That's the real question. Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party, not exactly the staunch advocates for mineral projects, mining, exploration, all that kind of stuff. There's more talk about food prices skyrocketing, jumping back over to CBC here.
Inventory is running out.
Buckle up. We've already started to see the price increases. Remember, these counter tariffs went into effect in March, So as inventory became depleted, those goods had to be replaced if you did not have an alternative supplier.
Some of Loblaw's biggest competitors didn't directly address if price hikes are coming, but Metro and Sobeys both said they are working with their suppliers. So far, it's just Loblaw warning about future price hikes.
I think they're trying to get ahead of this.
This marketing expert says the grocer wants to avoid blame.
They're trying to do something that other retailers aren't doing, which is keep preparing the consumer for what's to come. Will consumers still respond positively because of that? Probably not, because at the end of the day, your grocery prices will be more expensive.
And in the U.S., Walmart giving similar warnings about U.S. tariffs on China.
And so what some retailers will do is they'll absorb a lot of that cost increase so that they can still flow that product, still be able to sell that.
With the U.S. trade war going global, one thing is clear. Some costs at your local supermarket will go up unless tariffs drop down.
What's Mark Carney doing? He's over in Rome on a family vacation with a bunch of bishops and Liberal MPs for a religious vacation. Not dealing with this. Nope. Not negotiating a deal. Nothing. Next up, this is interesting. It says CBC leaked Canadian military report shows many new recruits are quickly leaving. Lead is buried here. Interview evidence shows that there is perception leadership is prioritizing culture change over critical operation needs like ammunition and equipment, said the evaluation. One of the biggest complaints of the new members who are leaving is that they believe senior commanders have the wrong priorities. They're prioritizing culture change, not ammunition and equipment. You know, things important to the military. I have 2 kids in the reserves and it's a gong show. Some great people involved, but the entire organization is wildly under-resourced. Soldier, we need bullets. General, we are waiting for low carbon facilities to make them. Please wait. That sums it up. Next up, we've got this one here talking about private healthcare in Ontario, where a doctor quit her practice, joined a private clinic where you have to pay $5,000 a year to be a part of, and now there's a whole bunch of people without a doctor, leaving them stranded unless they want to go pay $5,000.
Panic and confusion after a family doctor in Toronto closed her practice for good and moved to a private health clinic. Months later, some of her 1,600 patients are raising their voices at Queen's Park, calling this an example of the downfall of the public healthcare system.
This isn't just about one doctor and thousands of patients abandoned. It's about the erosion of our healthcare system, in particular, primary care delivered by family doctors.
87-year-old Wendy Campbell is one of the patients who were left scrambling last March. Her family doctor shut down her practice with just 3 months' notice. The private clinic the doctor moved to comes with a hefty fee.
This shouldn't be happening. There shouldn't be clinics in Ontario that charge $4,995 a year in order to access medically necessary care.
You know full well if Pierre Poilievre won the election, they would be blaming him for this, even though this is a provincial thing. That's what Liberals would do. Who are you going to blame now? Justin Trudeau and the Liberals drove the doctors away by bringing in those capital gains increases. Now, technically, they didn't go through, but the doctors didn't know that. They fled Canada because that's how a doctor has to set up their business, is through using a corporation, capital gains, all that. We're not going to get into it, but that's how they set up their retirement. And by increasing capital gains, it hits the doctors. So they left. They went down to America. They went other places, just like all the nurses. Now our country's having to pay exorbitant fees, triple the price on travel nurses to make up the loss of nurses because Trudeau drove them all out with the world event, trying to force them to take an experimental thing. And now we got situations like this where it's more profitable for a doctor to close down, join a private clinic. What's Carney going to do? Go over to Rome again? Take another vacation? Go somewhere else? Is he going to handle this? Is he going to handle Trump? Doug Ford is doing everything he can to destroy our healthcare. This budget is horrible. Doug Ford is a liberal, so that's what you get. Thought this video was interesting. It's telling where the future is going. It says a complete section of this factory was hired humanoid robots to work these jobs. They're paid a wage to the robots' owners and have to work goals and shifts. All right, so we can't have that music in there, but yeah, I mean, we're going to be seeing more and more of this, whether it's robots that come from Japan or China or Tesla. Robot workers are going to take over. They will be stronger. They can work 24 hours a day. They will need maintenance, but they don't need benefits. They don't need to be paid. I'm sure they cost a lot of money. I believe Elon Musk said the Tesla robot would be like $170,000, something like that. But considering if this does the work of a worker, say $170,000 worth of work per year, because they can work 24 hours a day, they would pay for themselves after a year of work. Next up, we got this one from Sun Duran. He explains how people canvass the streets looking for cars that are either very expensive to be stolen later or cars that can be robbed right now.
Please, for the love of God, lock your cars at night in Canada. This is North Oakville. They have teams of people canvassing the streets at 4 in the morning. You can see here, walking up and down the street to see if your car is unlocked so they can steal it, or mark your car for a theft in the future where they may invade your home to take the keys. This is what has happened to our country. You can see the other person's going to be walking on the other side of the street, checking each one of these vehicles as well. They are doing this in the middle of the night, literally canvassing our streets. Please lock your car. Don't keep any valuables in your vehicle. Lock your car. Even better, put it in the garage if you have to, because this madness is happening before our eyes. And God help us all, Mark Carney just appointed Sean Fraser as our new Attorney General and Justice Minister. Yes, that's Sean Fraser that was responsible for the immigration crisis in this country, where we let in millions of people, undocumented, unmitigated mass immigration, destroying our immigration system in this country, and the housing crisis in this country. This man is the king of failing and falling upwards, and now he's responsible for protecting our families and children.
There's no reason he should be anywhere near government. He fails upwards. That is his claim to fame. This guy's saying here, I recently left Hamilton. I live downtown. If you didn't want to replace smashed windows over and over and over, you had to leave your doors unlocked. Funny enough, I worked with a guy downtown Vancouver who, same thing, he had to leave his doors unlocked when he parked in the parkade because otherwise people would smash the windows. And one of those times he left the doors unlocked, somebody climbed in the backseat of his car and dropped a hot Carl right in the middle of the seat. You can't win. There's no winning.